Christina, welcome to the channel. It's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
So today I brought you on. I wanted to talk more about Data Bento. So, we talk a lot about, right, your story. You have the hedge fund you guys started when you were younger. What was that point though, just jumping into that made you want to start Data Bento, which seems very odd coming from like the hedge fund world and then kind of going more on the data side of it?
Yeah, I can talk about that from so many different angles, both from an emotional, like philosophical perspective, as well as from a more of a practical perspective of what happened, right? Why did you like want to start it? So first, maybe talking about why you want to start it, and then going in more into the emotional aspect. So starting it was more okay from obviously from hedge fund perspective. If any of you guys have ever worked as a quant researcher, you know this, right? Like half your job is wrangling data,
Mhm.
and you're like, wait, this is not what I expected, right? You wanted to build like signals and actually do all the sexy work, but instead you're like, cleaning data and like sourcing data and stuff, and you're like, this kind of sucks. But it's not just that. It's more like for us because we were at the level where we had to go look for the data, and we actually run across a lot of restrictions with
Mhm.
how we could use that data. So, for example, we had a lot of restrictions on display versus non-display use cases. We had a lot of restrictions, even from other vendors, on very specific things like how we can implement their API that were just really frustrating, like very poor, almost like developer decisions on how they almost like built their API, where we're like, this was really dumb. It was as if it was built by people who, a team that built like maybe a terminal first and then their API data product kind of came second. You could tell it was like the afterthought product. So that was a problem. And then, of course, we go to all the startup vendors and they're kind of built for retail traders. And so there
Mhm.
wasn't really a vendor that felt, like a modern vendor that was meant for institutions at the time. And so that was a big impetus for why we started Data Bento. And then, of course, we talked to our LPs in the fund and heard all their problems too about, licensing and onboarding and data quality and all these other things. And then we're like, you know what, let's like make this all under one roof, right? So for Data Bento, just FYI, like we do almost everything under one roof. We do live and historical data. A lot of people don't know we actually do raw data as well as normalized data, and a lot of people don't actually know we also do connectivity solutions. So we also, we're the first vendor and the only vendor currently to offer level 3 order book data through regular internet. But then if you also want connectivity, especially for like options where like Oprah data is like really large, you need connectivity solutions for that. We also offer connectivity. So it's like we are kind of the one-stop solution for a lot of things. Yes, of course, as a startup, we don't cover, global coverage. That's definitely the one limitation, right? We don't have Asian markets. We primarily have US and European markets today. So that's kind of the limit that we currently have today, where yes, we need funding, we need more revenue to kind of get there. We only launched 2 years ago, so we're still very much the new kids on the block in terms of where we're at. But in terms of our offering, it's actually fairly comprehensive in terms of like people come to us, if you need your US or European data, we become like the one-stop shop, for those kinds of things. And they end up getting, connectivity through us. They end up getting normalized raw data, historical, real time, like kind of everything under one roof. And it actually helps a lot because our data is harmonized. So I can go on forever and ever about all this stuff, as you can tell. But there's so many different benefits to using a data vendor that's harmonized like that, and isn't like so disjoint and is built by quants, for quants basically. So anyway, that's kind of the impetus for starting it initially. And then I can go on about, I don't know, Dimitri, if you want to talk about the emotional aspect of it, but
Yeah.
I'm
So I haven't talked about it anywhere else, but some people know, I am leaving my current job and I'm in this space where I feel like, I don't know, maybe you felt similar, where it's like I had a job, I had something I did, and now I'm at this point of like, I want to do something different, but I also want to run with it and I want to take a different avenue. And I'm still in that exploration phase of like, which direction do you go? What state were you in when you left? You guys closed down your hedge fund. Was it like this instant thing of like, I love data and I'm going to do data bento, or is it kind of an exploration process on which direction you were heading?
Oh man, there was definitely an exploration process, right? Especially to give you a sense, like, first off, hedge funds is a way sexier of an industry, right? Let's be real. And to
Yeah.
give you an example, actually, even just to give you some concrete funny stories, like whenever we interview job candidates for the head, like when we're working, at the hedge fund, right? I've never had a job candidate ever ask me like, so why should I work for you, right? Because it's like it's sexy job. It's a sexy industry. Whereas like for a data company, yeah, we have candidates ask us all the time, like, why should I work for a data company? Why should I give up, a stable, awesome career at a, nice quant fund, which a lot of our colleagues have to do to work at a data company, in which many cases I say, you don't. Maybe you should stay at your current place, especially because a lot of these firms will double down when they hear they're about to join Data Bento. They'll actually double down on bonuses and salaries. We've had that happen many times. I'm not going to name the names of the companies that do that, but some companies will double down on salaries and bonuses, which is great, by the way. That's good for them, and I'm glad that they're able to use our company's name to as leverage to like get twice the salary that they used to get at their current company. But yeah, it's incredible to see just how high the salaries are these days, even within the quant industry, within the buy side. And so yeah, I think that was one of the kind of things that we face in terms of like, salary trajectory wise, right? Being realistic here, right? People join the quant industry because it makes, pays off very, very well. And so that was one thing that we were kind of considering, okay, like how, going back into this early stage startup world in the data world, like, okay, suddenly it's not sexy. Suddenly we're going to be making no revenue even. That's going to be really tough. We're going to have to barely pay ourselves anything. And who knows, we could fail like very easily, right? It's an idea we have a lot of conviction around. And I think that's why we went for it, because we had a ton of conviction around this idea. We knew how to build a solution because of our experience. And so that was one thing, like we had just a lot of conviction and belief that we could do this. And so that kind of drove us to still do it anyway and be crazy about it. And then the other thing was like, thankfully at this stage, when we started the hedge fund, okay, I was like 21 years old. It was a different stage of my life. Like I was willing to like, sleep on couches and like eat ramen diet for like weeks at a time, and be literally like poor. Okay. Whereas this time around, it's like, okay, thankfully, I'm way more well off than back then. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like I'm way better off now. Like I can, afford to do this startup now, right? And like not sleep on couches. I have a house, like I have a family. I have, I'm okay now. And then the benefit of working at an early stage startup, by the way, there's okay, actually, when people ask why should I work for Data Bento, actually, there's actually three words that I say: work from home. And compared to right the rest of the quant trading industry, that's actually one of the huge benefits of work from home. Because like, look, you're going to make a lot less in the fintech industry in general as a service provider. Like, right, it's true. But like one thing I do tell my colleagues is, you're welcome to go walk your dog during the day, pick up the kids from school, put on your favorite TV show, and can work in your pajamas for all I care. Like, like it's fairly chill. And like so long as of course you communicate to us when you're at work, right, and when you're
Yeah.
checking in checking out, so that way there's fair communication, so we know what you're up to, and also so you don't worry either. So we can all like know what each other we're all up to, so that's really all that matters. And I think that really makes us all more productive because people don't bother you all day and stuff like that. And of course we do offsites too, throughout the, like we did one in London literally last week where we meet up in person and still have that FaceTime that people really desire to. And so yeah, I think it's like pros and cons, but you're absolutely right. Like, and I can go on and on forever about the pros and cons of kind of buy side hedge fund life versus data vendor startup life. Like
Yeah.
very very different day-to-day lifestyles, but like definitely there's pros and cons to each. And I would say like there's not one that's better than the other, by the way. Whenever people talk to me and ask me about stuff like that, I'll just say like, look, go for what wakes you up in the morning and like what's best for you. And sometimes you want to try out the hedge fund lifestyle, and I think that's great, especially if you like chasing the markets, if you like, that kind of lifestyle, then absolutely, go for it. Versus if you, prefer like more of the work-life balance, like startup. I mean, not that sometimes startup life is bad, it depends.
Depends where you're at.
But yeah, I mean, at this stage for us, thankfully, like we try our best to be like, look, we worked really hard last week, and for the London folks, like we didn't get Juneteenth off, and so a lot of us took Monday off, for example, and so we're able to like have weekends and have like days off like this, and try our best to still have a little bit of work life balance. So yeah, anyway, that I could go on forever.
Was that part of your reasoning too to be a founder of starting another company? Was kind of like the freedom to pivot, to move, and then I guess part of it being that you guys had somewhat built this out at the hedge fund before, so you felt like you have a grasp, you know the problem well, so it's easier to solve. So it made sense to kind of go down that path of the data side.
Ooh, it's a good question. I think first the founder side in general. I think we just have a lot of experience as founders already. So it's like we have a founder playbook. We have the entire startup playbook, right? On like, it's funny. Last week I was like at one of the meetups that we did last week. Someone asked like, "How do you fire people?" And I was like, "Here's how you fire people." And it's like literally we have a playbook on every little detail. If you want to know like what software we use to hire people, what software we use to fire people, like we literally have a playbook like note to like literally details on like how to do every little thing. And like I know that sucks, right? Those are like little, some of these sound really
Mhm.
awful and it sounds very inhuman of me to say some of these things, but like as a founder, like you have to know and like learn these types of little things. And maybe it sounds like I learned these a little bit too early in my life, like, and I'm a little bit desensitized to like these things. Just give you a sense. Like I told people last week, the first time I had to fire someone, I cried the whole night, before. And my old boss from UBS who fired me called me at 1:30 a.m. And he was like, "Christina, I fired 10,000 people in my life. Here's how you do it." And he actually taught me. So the funny thing is he actually taught me, like, I don't know if you know an anime, like a senpai, he like taught me how to fire people. And then I like passed it on. I felt kind of bad, but like, when I view it that way, it kind of made me kind of laugh a little bit like, wow, like this is the world. This is the reality, right? Like at the end of the day, you're running a business and, if you
Mhm.
keep everyone, you're going to die. Your business is going to like not survive. And so you got to hire slow, fire fast. Like those are lessons that are easier said than done. And, but anyway, so we kind of learn all those things. And it is fun to like ultimately you still have to kind of be a little crazy. It's fun to run a business. And also just like we have enough like I don't know, I guess experience to kind of do that. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it as well. Just like enjoying the many aspects of wearing those hats and starting an early stage, building a product like this, having that early stage ownership, I guess, of a product. And whereas like just to give you a sense of differences, right? At a large company, you're rewarded for staying in your lane, right?
Yeah.
Meaning like a lot
Yep.
of my friends who work at large companies, they'll have an idea and they're like, and then their boss is like, "That's not your idea to have. Like that's this other team's idea over there. You can't do that idea, right?" And sometimes they get shut down like that. Whereas like, at a startup, you have an idea and they're like, "Oh, great. How can we start? Where do we start? Can you work on this?" Right. And they'll expect you to actually work on the idea from end to end and really like grind through the idea yourself, which you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I was not expecting that." So it's like the total opposite vibe at a startup sometimes. And so I prefer that opposite vibe, a little bit of like grinding something down to the little nitty gritty details. And so that's also a big reason why, we decided, okay, we want to do like another startup. Of course, make it a separate company, right? Separate cap table, because it's a different company. It's a different venture altogether. And so, yeah, started from scratch. And then, I mentioned I have two co-founders, right? One of my co-founders started Data Bento with me. The other co-founder started a biotech firm, which is also doing very well. And so, again, like we started different firms. And so I think it's like once you go into startup world, it's hard to like go
Get
back
out.
into like large corporation world or whatever. But yeah, so we all ended up still in the startup space.
Okay, very cool. So let's dive into the data here. How do you break down Data Bento's product lines? Because you have equities. Do you break it down based off products? Do you break it down based on markets? Like, how do you guys view kind of the products and what you guys offer?
Yeah, I mean, first we break it down even higher than that, higher level, where like let's say raw and normalized data,
Okay. What's the
or
difference? Break that
so
down because you're saying raw and
yeah,
normalized. I come from Bureau land. We don't have raw and normalized. We do everything
yeah.
ourselves. So
That's true. So, to give you a sense, like we're one of the few, I guess maybe few startups that captures our data directly from the source, right? So we actually capture the data raw, where it's unclean, I guess is the best way to put it.
yeah.
It's just coming directly from the source. And a lot of our customers actually do want to buy the data just as is, like that. They want to clean the data themselves. They want to normalize it themselves. And then we can, the large majority of our customers though want the data normalized. They want the data cleaned up in a certain way. They want it formatted a certain way. They want it, presented, I guess, a certain way that they're like familiar with. And so we normalize that data. We offer it, through web, through API, through whatever format that they're familiar with. And then they can kind of access it through, kind of a familiar means as well. So we can do that as well for them. And
Do
so I
you
think
have
that's like one of the bigger breakdowns that
do you do you guys actually do different formats for different
mhm.
companies?
Oh, interesting. So it's not like company specific, but
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but like, there's different, like in terms of formats, we offer, I think, over 14 or so different, we call them schemas, but yeah, the different 14 or so different formats. Like common terminology people use, I know, is like level one, level two, level three. Those terms are technically not accurate definitions, by the way, but it's okay. Like I know it's commonly used in the industry. SEO is really well, by the way. So a lot of startups like to use those terms.
Okay.
But like the correct term for level three, it's like MBO, is used by like a lot of venues and exchanges. So market by order data, for example, for level three. But anyway, long story short, yes, we offer like kind of everything under the sun because we capture the data raw. So we can kind of from there, the most granular data that we have, we can now basically turn it into all of the other formats that everyone wants basically from there. So yeah.
Okay. And what is level one, level two, level three? I hear this get thrown out around a lot. In my head, I just imagine level one's like cheap data that's very broad, and then level three is going to be like market tech for HFT.
Yeah, you're pretty much there, right? So level one is like, it's called top of book information. That's like the best bid and the best offer. So that's something like if you Google somewhere on like, I don't know, Yahoo Finance, like on Google, like that's kind of what you're seeing, the best bid and the best offer, right?
Yeah.
Level two is just a little bit more detailed. It includes like all trades and updates to aggregated book depth, usually for, I think it's like for a fixed number of price levels. So I think we have like MVP 1, MVP 10, which is like 10 levels or so. So it's like not every level, but it's like just a little bit of market depth there. And then level three is like the full order book. So that's like the entire order book of data. It has it's literally the highest granularity of data available. And it's every individual buy and sell order, basically at every single price level. And there's actually, I mean, there's some vendors that do provide that as well, in addition to Data Bento. But yeah, so those are like the three. I think we're the only one that does provide level three over regular internet though. So meaning you can literally you'd be in your pajamas on your laptop, download level three data, literally on your computer, like right now, even just through web, by the way. You don't even need to use an API. So you could literally do it through web on databento.com. You can just like Microsoft Tesla stock level three order book data. Like that's how we make it all a little bit too easy to do that. See the price, check out, add to cart. So that's kind of how easy we wanted to make it. It was like very easy, learnable, accessible to even like students, right? So that they can learn to get into this industry. They can learn to onboard and, figure out how to be a quant researcher, et cetera. Yeah.
So what type of customers buy them? Is there specific customers that tend to buy like level one, level two, and then obviously I'm guessing a different one that does level three, or like how does that shake out from a business standpoint?
Yeah, I'll just say we were usually expecting like the more, let's say latency sensitive, high frequency, maybe like quant shops, right, to want level three order book data. But recently we've seen a lot of non-quantitative or not very like non-latency sensitive firms who are looking for level three data as well. And I can't tell you why. I mean, I wish I could ask them and be like, oh, why are you doing this? But for us, it's like a lot of times like that's a big part of their strategy and it's part of their secret sauce. And so we try our best not to pry and ask. We've had even firms like not within our industry who buy our level three order book data, who are within, the biotech space, who are within, various other industries that are kind of using our data for other things. And so it's interesting. AI companies as well, training off of level three order book data for some reason. And so, yeah, it kind of varies a lot, but I think still in general, it's like the more high frequency that the more like data they need, I guess, to do the more data driven they are, right?
Yeah.
Where they need to see like a 3D view of the markets to do their strategies. Like they want to do a strategy based on the full market, not just like the top of the book. That's usually when they will come to us and get level three order book data. Yeah.
Okay. How hard is it to get historical data? I know I saw a post you guys had or something about like how far back you cover and then the struggles of getting it. And then it sounded like some of the data generators, I guess the exchanges, don't actually store more than so much data.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, it's easy to get some historical data, right? But I guess the hard part is easy to get, or it's hard to get like harmonized, accurate historical data.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people are like, wait, I'm getting historical data from like Schwab or Interactive Brokers, but it just doesn't match data from, the actual source, right? It doesn't match like the data from actual like NASDAQ, right? And the people will post on Reddit being like, why doesn't it match? And it's like, it's because the way that they normalize the data is totally like bonkers and totally incorrect, but whatever, they like normalize the data to the point where it's like altered and doesn't actually reflect, the actual markets as it is. And so then their back tests are inaccurate, and it just leads to a whole like slew of problems and stuff. And so I guess it's like, yeah, it's easy to obtain some level of historical data for sure, especially level one historical data. But when it comes down to like really accurate and harmonized historical data, where, for example, if you sum up the end of day data with our like our order book data, right? Like everything, all the numbers add up, all the timestamps add up and stuff. Whereas for a lot of vendors, they don't. I guarantee you, if you did that for, I don't want to say the bigger, like, the incumbent vendors, like I guarantee you, they will not add up because they source their level one data and their level three data from two different places. And that's really, really frustrating for a lot of people. So it can be hard to get, even though they can get, customers can get it easily. It's just hard to get it in a, harmonized, like unified format. So yeah.
I guess that's in many ways kind of the advantage, right, of Data Bento is that you guys are actually going from that raw source so you can make them add up. Because I know
Exactly.
like when I work with data on the sell side of this, we're often getting a bunch of data in and I have to generate reports. And then to your point, things don't add up, and then people want to know why they don't add up. And I can imagine being on the buy side doing, strategies and model development. They should be adding up. If not, there's obviously some sort of lack of transparency or an error in there. Do you guys think it's worth that process of going through from the raw level up, I guess, into more of a normalized perspective of this?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what you mentioned, right? And it's funny because like sometimes our customers they'll use us and another data source at the same time, and they'll come to us and be like, "How come your data source? How come Data Bento doesn't match, this incumbent data vendor's data, right?"
Yeah.
And then I think 100% of the time, like I don't think we've ever had a time when our data was the one that was incorrect. It's always the other vendor's data that is incorrect. And the other thing is like their support team isn't support, right? It's a bunch of salespeople, non-technical. So our support team, which is a bunch of quants, will dig down through their code and help them figure out why. And it turns out it's always the other vendor's data that's just totally bonkers and incorrect. And so, again, it's just like coming from the source, having even just better quality standards, and of course having a support team as well, right? That knows what they're doing, and has better standards. All of our stuff, by the way, is online, right? You can look at our data architecture on the internet, like it's all public facing. Our doc site, everything there is also public facing too. So you can literally look at our diagram of how we capture the data. You can see our philosophy on how we normalize data. Every little detail is on our doc site actually, which is extremely rare, by the way, even for other startups in the industry to publish like that level of granularity on like exactly how we normalize the data, like exactly how, like, every little thing unlike what we do behind the scenes. But that's really important to our customers because our customers want to know those details to determine if they want to buy the raw data or the normalized data, right? And so like that does help a lot. Yeah.
I feel like in many ways that's the secret sauce. To your point, right? Trying to be transparent with the customer on how you get to that endpoint. It's kind of an important piece.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is like, look, this industry, we're selling to some of the smartest people in the world, right? And that's actually a funny thing I tell our venture capital investors, right? Is that in venture capital, there's this book written by the founder of Long Term Stock Exchange, by the way, called The Lean Startup, which is popular in the startup industry, basically. And it basically talks about like, the whole thing is like, hey, build an overnight MVP over a weekend and like just start selling it to people, right? Just start selling it before you even have like a polished ready product. Because, if you spend like 4 years heads down building something and then you start selling it and you expect everyone to just come to you and start buying it, that's not going to happen, which fair point, right? That's not going to happen. But at the same time, we are selling to the smartest people literally in the world, physics Olympiad winners, right? Like people who are skeptical in nature, who can smell bad products and BS in an instant. And so we can't we can't be the other extreme. We can't build like an overnight MVP over a weekend and start selling a crappy data product because we only get one shot. And I think a lot of startups did jump the gun and were too early to go to market on that. And so they like end up selling a really crappy product. And so we were like, no, we're going to like take our time. It's going to take us years to get to launch. We're going to launch a good product though. And we're going to attract institutions on day one, literally on day one of our launch. And that's exactly what we've done. So like large majority of our revenue is from institutions, but of course we have a ton of, as you know, a ton of students who use us, tons of individuals who use us. We welcome everyone, right? But at the same time, I love that, our revenue does come from the institutions as it should be.
Yeah.
And that we're not like swindling money from like poor students who like don't have any money. Right. And so like that's kind of the way it should be, I feel like. And we've built a product like exactly aligned with like how we, like how we wanted it to be from the very get-go. So anyway, that all being said is like, yeah, data startups are not lean whatsoever. You have to be, if you're selling to smart people, again, like build smart, right? You have to take your time. And like, make sure that you're actually building something that's good quality before
Yeah.
you actually go out there and sell. And that's why, like, again, transparency, like we have tons and tons of documentation on our website. Most people actually, almost actually 100% of our customers, they started buying Data Bento without ever talking to me. Or my CTO, or well, sometimes they'll talk to like our salesperson, but like very rarely do they talk to like people on our team actually before they make their first data purchase, before they enter their credit card on our website, et cetera. And that's just because all of our information is on our website. Like we make it so transparent that they, it's like, and also that's the thing is like we're in an era where a lot of people don't want to talk to salespeople. They
Hmm.
want to like, hey, I want to look at this myself and do my own due diligence. Like I don't want to go on a phone call to get the price of a product that is like the most common product in the world, right? Like I should be able to get this price on your website, and which we do have the price on our website, including a pricing calculator on our website, so you can get like comparisons and stuff. So like that is super valuable. So yeah, anyway, that all being said is like that. Yeah, data startups are not lean, got to build really smart and take your time.
Yeah. Very quantist focused. Because I am the same way. I hate talking to salespeople. And like vendors reach out and they're like, hey, have you guys thought about this product? And then to your point, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that product looks awful. But then also like I'm like, what is the price on this? And they're like, well, let's set up a call with a bunch of salespeople and bring in people. And I'm like, I just need to know, is this like in the ballpark of reasonable or is this not in the ballpark of reasonable? So it's nice to see you guys have that.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's also a funny quote people say in this industry, like data is bought, not sold, right?
Hmm.
And I remember even when I was running the hedge fund, my previous life, when every week we had alternative data vendors that, similar probably with your case, right? Alternative data vendors come to us like every week, and they would try to sell us, I don't know, like satellite data on Walmart parking lots or whatever niche data sets they had. And I hated it. I hated being sold to, because I wanted to have, if it was like Inception where like you went into my head and planted the idea in my head that I needed it, then I would feel a lot better about it, right? Like I want to be the one that has the idea that I want to buy that data on my own. I don't want you to like, solicit me and tell me, did you know you need data? Like I don't like, being sold to.
Yeah.
I like being the one that makes the decision autonomously to like want to buy that data, right? And so it's like reverse solicitation. Like I want to be the one that like reverse solicits the data provider instead. And so we kept that in mind, by the way, when we were building the product as well, where I try my hardest not to like knock on doors and be like, did you? I'm
Yeah.
not gonna, I don't know, call Ray Dalio. Did you know you need data? Like, in what reality would he ever drop everything, and be like, oh, I data? Like, no, right? That's like so unrealistic. Even if I was Bloomberg like that, it's still like very unrealistic, right? So anyway, yeah, that all being said is like, we have to think about those aspects when building a data product, by the way. It's like you have to know this industry, you have to like know who your end user is and like how they behave. Thankfully I was an end user and I know what I know how I am. I mark every email as spam, and so like I am that kind of user. I'm just like spam. I turn off my all my phone calls. Like I do not accept unsolicited phone calls or emails or anything really. Everything is spam in my head. So like, how do you sell to someone like me, right? Is how you're going to sell Data Bento. And that's kind of how I view it in my head as well. Yeah.
So along those lines, what is the like what is the value proposition for Data Bento? Like
Oh
what
man.
sets you apart? Because in my eyes, right, to your point, I have all these data vendors
Yeah.
reaching out. They're like, oh, we could sell you this data and that data.
Yeah.
And for us, I tend to go with one vendor.
Yeah.
Drives all my managers insane. But there's one vendor I prefer to go with. What is the profit like the sales proposition? Like what makes Data Bento better than going with some other startup or some big box, big name provider?
Yeah, ultimately it's interesting because a lot of people think at first they think it's because we're cheaper, which our entry point is actually cheaper than a lot of vendors. But at the end of the day, actually, it's not just about the price or anything. If we competed on price, like why would you start a company, right? Like why would you start a cheaper Bloomberg? Like there's literally no reason to do that in any industry to compete on price. Like that's just not how you innovate in any space whatsoever. So that's not what we do actually. Of course you have to have a better product, better service, etc. But actually our value prop is that we modernize the industry. We're setting the modern standard for the rest of the industry to the point where, I don't know if you noticed, you probably saw this, Dimitri, like people copy us.
Mhm.
Like that is how bad it's gotten, to the point where like we are leading the industry today. We're literally setting the standard and overhauling the way that the data industry has been from the get-go, to the point where people have tried to acquire us constantly, but also two is other companies, either they try to acquire us or they try to copy us. Like it goes one of both ways. A lot of competitors will register for, I've never registered for a competitor's website, by the way, but they'll register for our website, and their whole team, and we see them screen recording different products on our website. And the thing is, by the way, we like have a philosophy of like not stopping them. We're like, look, may the best data provider win, right? I don't know, this feels like an episode of Silicon Valley. Like I'm the kind of person where I'm like, I'm not going to stop people from like doing this kind of stuff. Like they're always going to do that, right? And so like let them like get the information that they need to build the best product that they can, right?
Mhm.
Screen record, they spend like days like just on our website, like going through all of our docs and our data, downloading all our data, screen recording things. We've even had other data providers where they'll kind of like steal our data. They'll download our data, and then they'll sell it like on their website, and they don't even like, what do you call it, give us credit, which they should, by the way. They're
Yeah.
technically required to, but they don't. And then it's funny because then on Reddit, some people will be like, hey, what data provider should I use? And then I see those vendors being like, you should use us. And I'm just sitting there like laughing, like, but I never post on, like, I would never be like, you should use Data Bento instead, like, whatever. Like, may the best data provider win. And if they want to pay those guys, like, great. So that's kind of my philosophy now, is like, I just kind of take a step back and I'm like, we're not running a race. And, again, we continue to modernize and move forward with the industry, right? And continue to kind of make everyone else freak out and try to copy us. And like, I think that's been the most awesome thing, is like we focus on, again, making this industry better, rather than just, being a cheaper Bloomberg or whatever it is. Right. And so I think that's really the biggest value prop we have, is like our product itself is completely like 180 different from anything out there that anyone else has seen out there so far. I'll also give you a sense, like we have pretty much almost 100% enterprise retention. The only enterprises that have not retained are companies that have died. So like pretty much, I guess you could say almost like 100% retention in that, by that definition. Where once people switch over to us, they stay with us basically. And that's a really good sign, right? And they switch over to Data Bento, not from startups, by the way. Like we try our best not to like, take business away from other startups. Like that's dumb. We take business away from billion-dollar incumbents actually today. So yeah, that's kind of where we are in this industry right now. So yeah, that's what we continue to do. Yeah.
Is it the connectivity solutions too? Like you guys are adding on, I guess, easier ways to deal with data. So I can tell people, like, as someone who builds models and works with data, I hate dealing with data because it's like 70% of my job. And to your point, it's always like I'm getting data from different sources, and then you have to try to get it all into one platform to then do the analysis and then build the modeling. And then even when we're done with it, we still have to connect back into what many people probably don't know is there's actually an exchange for auto. There's like a market exchange. And
I
dealers
didn't
come
know.
out and get pricing and they do transactions. We still have to go out, get the request for pricing, go through the process, get the data sources, bring it all back in, run it through the models, and then kick back like a price and an answer. Is it some of that innovation within your guys' space that's kind of bringing you guys forward as one of the market leaders? I know you mentioned like connectivity solutions. Can you talk a little bit about kind of that connectivity and some of the advantages and features you guys have added?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's another thing, right? Is like, you can't just how do you describe it? It's like providing people with groceries, but not a shopping bag or a shopping cart, right? Like, come on, right? You
Yeah.
expect people to like buy a crap ton of groceries from you and just hold it in their hand and like That is just so not practical. They're going to drop, everything, drop packets basically like on the way, on the way out. Right. And so like, yeah, you have to have a way of delivery that makes sense. You have to have a way for them to like carry everything out the door. Right. Like it's just, again, something that we think about, we play the metagame here. We have to think like, from a data user perspective of what makes sense and build the things that make sense from, from our own personal experience of like, we needed connectivity solutions. And so yeah, we do actually we have four methods technically of connectivity: regular web, we have interconnects through cloud, we have interconnects on-prem, and then we also have cross connects as well. Oh, and colo, sorry. So like we have all kinds of interconnects, cross connects, colo, web. And so we have different methods of connectivity that people do. And on our website, we explain what each one does. We explain like each one, the pros and cons of each, the cost of each, some of which are pretty cheap, like $300 a month. Like it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. It's like $300 a month. Okay. Like, and then we explain the latency profile, like what does the average latency look like for each, and the pros and cons of doing it. Like, how much time does it take to set up? What kind of common use case would usually kind of use that kind of setup, and also usually how much data are you consuming, right? Like would you usually need something like this, right? And usually the case is usually for options data, especially because options data is like 10 20 times bigger than like all the other data sets out there. And so that's usually one of the biggest use cases where people are like, if they're buying options data, they're like, why is this so big? Why is there so much data? What is it, like 100 million packets, like data, like points like coming in, within like the span of, I don't know, it's pretty soon, like within the span of a second now, within the span of a minute. Like it's really awful, how big it is. And so because of that, like, you can't just get that through regular web anymore. You have to,
Mm-hmm.
set up connectivity. And so anyway, all that being said is like, we help our users navigate those questions, by the way. And like a lot of our customers do use us on almost like and the thing is like, look, we're happy to almost, I don't want to say consult, because like, again, like, I try not to like use my time like that. But I will say like a lot of our customers, like, because we have that knowledge and experience, right? And a lot of our customers don't.
Yeah.
They will even ask us, like, these are established institutions that are coming to us, like some of the top quant funds in the world are coming to us and being like, what do you recommend? Right? Like, what is your setup here? And they're asking us very granular, like detailed questions on the connectivity or the data side of things, and hearing our viewpoints on these kinds of things. And I think that's really cool. Like we're being treated as equals, in this
Mm.
entire conversation, rather than as like a vendor that people like a punching bag where they just punch us around. Right. And I think that's so amazing to see. And oh, by the way, that's the other kind of surprising benefit. I thought that as a vendor that we just kind of be like a punching bag a little bit, but surprisingly, we're treated very well. Like when we go to, I don't know, like events and career fairs, when I was running the hedge fund, a lot of the bigger funds would kind of ignore us or run away because like they knew we were a competitor. But now, now that we're a data vendor, they all come to us. Oh my god, data Bento, you're so awesome. Like the vibe is like so different, and it's just so much fun to actually like have friends in this industry, and because we don't compete against all these guys now, they're all like our customers, and so that's also like just a fun, surprising thing for us is that we're being treated as equals, but also used almost like as consultants in a way to
Mm-hmm.
help them build out their entire data infrastructure. So yeah.
That was one thing that has shocked me over the last probably 12 to 18 months. I've been talking to more hedge funds, and people that probably shouldn't be talking, but they have mentioned that there's this huge headache with the data side of it and doing the connectivity. And I'm like, when I come from a different side, the outside, and I look in, everyone's like, oh, we've got it all dialed in. We have the best and the brightest. We have data engineering teams. We have this whole thing set up. And then you start talking to them, and it's like, oh, this is such a headache for us. Like, we have four people on this team trying to solve this problem, and we can't get it fixed out. And then we're talking to a couple of data vendors trying to figure out how we put those together. So it was pretty surprising to me. To your point, right? They need some guidance of like, how do we best optimize the structure and how do we put it together? So it's always nice to know that there are vendors that can actually help kind of put the products in line and get you the right pieces that you need with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially with the recent volatility, right, in the last couple months or so with all the tariffs and stuff. I think we were one of the few, if not the only data provider that was not down. We didn't have any down days. I mean, by the way, for us, there were other data providers that were down for days apparently at a time. For us, being delayed by even like 15 seconds is unacceptable in Data Bentos, like in my world, in my viewpoint, being down for 15 seconds,
Yeah.
unacceptable. I can't even imagine being down for a day. Like that is just insane to me that these companies that make billions of dollars per year are down for days at a time, and that people still stick with them, and that people are still okay with that. Whereas for us, it's like our quality and our standards are just way higher than that, right?
Yeah.
And yet, like, here we are as a struggling startup. We're not profitable, by the way. Like, these people just don't know we exist. And so that's one thing. That's why I'm doing this with you. Right? That's why I'm trying my best, because I suck at sales. I suck at marketing. Trying my best to like put the name out there, and try my best to like do my job basically. But yeah, like that also just wanted to say that that was one of the things and reasons why like we've been hopefully like doing well, right, as we hold ourselves to like a much higher standard than even the incumbents do.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about like contract transparency and some of the issues with contracts? I don't know if a lot of people fully grasp what goes into a data contract and some of the
Mhm.
restrictions and issues that you can kind of run into.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, one of the shockers, right? We call this like almost like an innovation killer, which is that let's say you're starting a startup and you're building the next, I don't know, Robinhood or something. And so you need real-time data to like feed to your phone by API. And let's say you need like real-time NASDAQ data. So suddenly, you'll go to like, I don't know, whether you go to us or any other data provider, right? We will all tell you, hey, you're going to need a license with NASDAQ to get
Mhm.
that, regardless of which data provider you choose. You will, whether you even go to like, I don't know, even if you go to Yahoo Finance, like you will still need a data contract with NASDAQ to get the real-time data from them, right? In order, or from us or from whoever else, but you'll still need that license in order to like, access real-time data essentially. And they're like, what? Like, how does this work? Like, what? They've never seen this before. And then it's like, well, we'll show them like our pricing for our data. And maybe it's like a few $100s a month. And they're like, that's so expensive. Then they talk to NASDAQ and they're like, what's the price of your license? And they're like, oh, it's $20,000 a month. And they're like, oh, the whole order of magnitude of the license is like way, that makes us seem really cheap, like peanuts in comparison, right? To like whatever, like the vendor. And by the not pointing out any particular like exchange, NASDAQ is awesome, by the way. So I'm just using them as an example, but like, that's just how the industry is. Like every
Mhm.
venue is like that. There are license fees, hopefully not 20K a month. It's not that high, but like, it's going to be like, it could be a couple $1,000s a month, depending on what your use case is, and how you're using that data, whether it's for display, like on a phone, whether it's for non-display. And that's why it's hard to like find the fees. There's like a list somewhere on like one of their websites on like what the fees are, but there's like, it's like 60 different types of fees. And and so funny thing is, by the way, one of our old like take home assignments for one of our interviews that we used to do for like job candidates was, we were like, okay, go to like this I don't know if I forgot if it was like NASDAQ's website or CME, like one of these exchange websites, right? And if I were to build a startup doing XYZ, tell me what the exchange license fee will be. And shockingly enough, everyone gets it wrong. Like people, it is hard to go on their website and figure out the actual license fee. So that's what I mean by like transparency and licensing is, first off, people don't even realize that there's a license required. Even a
Mhm.
lot of established firms, if you work, if you're not the person in charge of data at a lot of larger firms, you might not even realize that too, because all the data just kind of handed to you, right? So you don't even realize it. And so we have to explain to a lot of people at large shops that, hey, does your company have a license? And they're like, what's that? I don't know, right? That happens a lot too. So anyway, that license is we call it the innovation killer, because a lot of times we introduce companies, people, whoever we're working with, to the exchange with the goal of like getting the license. Hey, Dimitri's interested in getting a license with you guys. I'll let you guys take it from here, right? And then they'll send you a form to fill out or survey and go from there. And then we just never hear from you guys ever again. Like that happens more often than not, by the way. It's like I'll just never hear from both parties ever again, because like chances are the price is just way too high, or
Mhm.
people just kind of bulk at the price and run away. And so anyway, yeah, that unfortunately happens. But that's kind of what I mean by like, there's a little bit of a both a transparency issue in terms of people just aren't aware, but also like the pricing is like a little bit like just hard to find, and definitely people complain about it to me all the time. So it's very high as well. Yeah.
So have you guys worked on that on your end, trying to make just a more streamlined process for customers so they can kind of see like, okay, this is what I need going through Data Bento? Obviously, he's gonna have to get the license still, but do you guys make that process simpler, or is it still just kind of like, hey, you have to go through the rigmarole of doing all this?
Yeah, so in some instances, depending on which exchange you're working with, we can serve as a vendor of record, depending on which exchange and what they allow us to do as well.
Okay.
So technically, you go on our website. We have a tab on our website called like live data, and then you'll see like a couple of venues on there, and then you can like activate a real-time license with us, kind of depending on your use case and stuff like that. And if you're a company, sometimes you have to still reach out to us, and then we have to like make an introduction and still do the manual process for better or worse. Sometimes in some use cases on our website, you can just kind of fill out a form or something and just kind of activate the license. So it really just depends on the specific use case, depends on the specific exchange and their rules. And we have to work with their, that's why also like we exist, right? We have to like work with each of their rules and like, deal with like each of their little nuances and cater our product to the user and make it as easy for the user as possible based on what the exchange allows us and the user to do, basically. So, yeah.
Awesome. Do you want to answer one final question here as we're running close to the hour? Do you want to talk a little bit about what colocation is, who uses it, and why it's important?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, when we were starting even the hedge fund, right, back in the day, it was like we were very latency sensitive, meaning like to give you a sense, why it was important for us, right? Like every hour, even back then, of like an opening day, just opening hour, sorry, of like a fairly busy day, we would get, I forgot, like millions, like, probably like 300 million, half a billion, I forgot, something like that, of different like messages coming through, like people trying to make trades and stuff like that, even back then. And that's a lot of data to process. And so we kind of quickly realized as we were building these things and starting off, that the faster we could process those messages, the more we could, create signals based on those messages and take advantage of like things at a more granular level, or else we were kind of like glazing over everything but not really seeing the smaller picture. We wanted to be able to see the smaller picture, not just like the bigger picture. And so that was where we're like, okay, let's go for co-location, right, and get data directly from the source, but also that way we can like normalize the data, we can get the fastest speeds and kind of go from there. So with Data Bento as well, like that's kind of what we do, right? So we co-locate. We do that mainly so that we can get the data in its raw format, and then that way we can convert it into like dozens of other normalized formats. We can control the latency. We can control how we normalize the data as well. When there's issues with the data as well, we can, we also timestamp the data, by the way, and so we can have different timestamps and help the user understand like when we timestamp it, we can timestamp on when we receive the data versus when the exchange timestamps the data, so that way the user understands like transparently like what happened between the two and what the latency truly is and stuff like that, right? So so all those little details like matters a lot in terms of colo. A lot of our users will prefer to set up colo or cross connects as well, like through us, meaning usually for those use cases that means that they're fairly latency sensitive. It also means like they care about like speed is fairly important to them as well. And so yeah, that's like, I guess that's probably the biggest reason why is they just want like better speeds. They want to be able to probably handle quite a lot of data as well, and then and then trade at a more like granular level usually. Yeah.
So when you're saying co-located, it's you guys are having servers essentially next to the data provider servers, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we'd be at the data center. So like, for example, we have, oh, so it's all on our website too. We have like a diagram of like which data centers. So like we're at like Aurora DC3. So that's like for CME, for example. So that's like in Chicago. That's like the data center where CME's at. And then, so we have, server kind of placed there as well. We are in like NY4 today. And then I know a lot of our customers are in like, NY5 or, there's a bunch of other like a server data centers as well, like in that region ish. So yeah, like that. So they're basically like, we have to set up colo to be able to do this kind of stuff. And a lot of our customers do as well. And we often talk about these things and like, they'll ask like, which data centers are you in? And like, can we figure out the cross connects and, can you set up in a different location as well? And, so we'll discuss these things and try to figure out logistically, how to make it work as well with our customers. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and talking about Data Bento. It's always exciting to talk about data. I know not everyone enjoys it, but someone that deals a lot with it, it's nice to see kind of how the transactions are put together and how kind of all of your systems get put together as well. I know it's not an easy feat.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I know this is such a like random and niche topic, but I really appreciate you having me on here and being able to hear me rant about all my data issues.